Hello, and once again a very warm welcome to you on this very cold bonfire night of November 2016. Once again we're live with our next episode in this fascinating series of Influences of the Times. So as always, a very warm welcome back and a very warm welcome to you. If this is your first time for tuning in into Influences of the Times, very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for watching. And hopefully, as always, you will find this next episode in this fascinating series as interesting as the rest. So a very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much. So just before we go any further, just to very quickly clarify just a couple of things from our last broadcast that we did. Now, if you remember, and if you were watching, and if you weren't, the last broadcast that we did was probably just over a week ago from one of Birmingham's most fascinating Victorian, or what was left of a Victorian cinema, dated from the 1920s, and it was Kingsway Cinema just outside Birmingham. And there was just a couple of details that I just want to reconfirm or re-clarify with you. Firstly, if you remember, when I was talking about the history of the cinema, I stated in that broadcast that the cinema was designed by a gentleman called Horace J. Bruce. So just to clarify, the gentleman's name was actually Horace G. Bradley. So not Horace J. Bruce, it was Horace G. Bradley. So that was his name, and he designed that cinema along with many other cinemas like it in and around the Birmingham area. And secondly, I did say that in that broadcast I said that it was our 15th episode of Influences of Times, when in actual fact it was our 16th episode of Influences of Times. So this is actually our 17th episode, so I welcome you to our 17th episode of Influences of Times. Now, just very quickly, just to kind of recap a little bit, if you've been watching, and also if you've been on my Facebook page, you'll know that I stated, or that I put an event on there to say that we would be doing a live broadcast from a pub which was over 500 years old just outside Birmingham. Now, we will be doing that broadcast, I can assure you. I was hoping that that broadcast would be in place of this one. However, that broadcast will be coming to you soon. Okay, so we will be doing a broadcast from that pub, and it's literally just outside Birmingham city centre. Now, we won't be able to go into the pub itself because it's literally being held up by scaffolding, and also it's being cordoned off by a fence. So you'll be able to see it, but we won't be able to go into it. But what I will do is do all the research for you, and obviously try and make it as interesting for you as possible by making up for it, by giving you lots of information about it. It's a very small pub, it's not very big, but it's all original. Even the sign outside is original. And what I will do is I will include the link which they did a special live broadcast from inside that pub, because they're thinking of redoing it, or they're kind of thinking of different ideas with what they can actually do with that pub. So what I will do is, when I do the broadcast, and as I take the photographs and all the research and put it on Facebook, on my website, especially my website, I will include that live broadcast by the newspaper that they did. So you'll be able to see what it's like in there. There's not much to see. There's only a flight of steps and 2 floors, and that's it. There's nothing else in there. But at least you'll be able to see a little bit about it. So I will include that. So don't worry, I will be doing a live broadcast from that pub sometime in the very near future. Also, just before we start, I was going to mention to you that we would be sort of upgrading our equipment. I'm hoping that either when we do the broadcast from that pub in Birmingham, or whether we do our next location, I will be broadcasting to you from our new camcorder. So I'll have all the bits and pieces that I need, and we'll be able to do a live broadcast, and we'll be able to stream onto Facebook, and also we'll be able to stream onto YouTube. So our YouTube channel is already up and running. Obviously, we just haven't put any videos on it yet. So I will be streaming or live broadcasting onto either YouTube or Facebook using a brand new camcorder, which will obviously make the whole experience a lot better for you guys, because it will be better picture quality, hopefully better sound quality, and a little bit more professional, so to speak. So hopefully in the next week, 2 weeks, we will be broadcasting and live streaming to both Facebook and YouTube using brand new camcorder and new equipment, so it'll be even better. Okay, so now that I've got all that out of the way, this location here. Now, I've done a little bit of research. There is a tiny bit of research. There's not a lot, and I can't remember all the details, but I'll try and remember as much as I can for you. So before we go any further, welcome to episode 17 of Impulses Times from one of Birmingham's oldest coal and flint collieries. I think that's how you pronounce it, colliery or colliery, almost like a mining kind of location. So we've come away from our usual kind of locations, which would be cinemas or factories or colleges or tunnels and that kind of thing, and we've now come to the coaling industry. So welcome to Birmingham's, one of Birmingham's, in fact it's probably the only one of Birmingham's last remaining coal and flint collieries, or mining kind of, not, I wouldn't say depots, but mining locations. So welcome. So let's give you some research and then we'll have a quick look about it. Now there isn't a lot to see. You can probably see it's getting a little bit dark, so I'm going to try not to make this broadcast go on for too long, because obviously I don't want it to get pitch black. There's not a lot to see, but I'll give you a bit of a look about it, and I'll try and give you as much information as I can, as always. So this particular colliery was actually called the Old Coal Colliery. The reason why it's now called the New Colliery is because, believe it or not, there's another one of these, or what was another one of these locations, very similar to this one, situated very nearby. However, it's no longer existent. So it was one that was built previous to this one, believe it or not. So we had the old one and this was the new one. So believe it or not, even though this is so old, this, believe it or not, is the new coal flint colliery or mining location. It was originally built in the 19th century, and we're going back as far as about the 1829, roughly about 1829-ish, or somewhere around there. And it was deprived, or it was thought up and actually designed or built by two gentlemen in particular. So we had one gentleman's name was Richard Spooner, and the other gentleman was called Henry Marshall. And they both came together and they came up with this idea. The reason why they placed this location here is because the area surrounding this location was rich in coal and flint and clay, and that's why they designed another location along with the previous one in this location here. Now this particular site that I'm in right now is actually surrounded by 48 acres of land. So we're not quite in the middle of nowhere, but it is a massive, massive area. So 48 acres. Now the area or the land to my right is towards what now is a public park, and there's a football field over there, and there's other things as well, but it's kind of like a large woodland area now with lots of paths and things that you can walk through. But this is part of a 48 acre piece of land, so it'll give you an idea of how big the land was. And that land was rich, as I mentioned just a minute ago, in clay, coal and flint. There was a railway line, and this location was purposely built near the railway line. So the railway line was actually where the Stour River now runs. Now the Stour River is probably about 20 minutes, maybe not even that, maybe 15 minutes away from where I'm standing, and it's not even a river, it's more like a stream, but that originally was, so it's now the Stour River. It was originally the railway line which was used for the steam trains to stop and for the wagons to be filled with clay and flint and coal. Okay, now the two gentlemen that I mentioned back in 1829, these two men were also accompanied by 8 businessmen or 8 partners. Basically how it worked was there was a company, an iron steel company in London. They bought and owned this 48 acre of land. The two gentlemen came, designed it along with the 8 other men who were still in the main iron factory in London. So there was kind of a connection there. So that's how this location was built and designed. They had miners here. Now it doesn't say how many miners, but obviously they had miners here. And its purpose, as I mentioned, because the land was rich in these minerals, it was to dig and mine for coal and flint in particular. Now clay was the one that happened afterwards, okay, so clay was more later, in other words more recent to this century, and obviously not as recent as this century, but towards the 21st century. Okay, so it was coal and flint was the main source of minerals that was mined at this location here, and then clay afterwards. Now that this location managed to survive and continue to operate fully up until the we'll talk about the 20th century, so we're looking at 1929ish, roughly about 1929ish, somewhere around there. That's when this location decided, or not decided, but gradually became, I wouldn't say abandoned or derelict, but that's when it began to deteriorate, I suppose, in a way. And a little bit later than 1929 was when this location became abandoned or derelict. So you can imagine this location's probably been abandoned or derelict for about, I'm going to roughly say, 50, 60, 70 years or more-ish. Okay, so I'll give you an idea of how abandoned, or how long it's been abandoned for, and how old this building is. So we're looking at 1829. Okay, so we're not quite 100, so we're over 100 years old. We're actually 160, 170 years old, this building is. So give you a bit of an idea. Now, just a little bit more research, a little bit more history for you. This, as with many of the locations that I've been to, suffered a fire. And I believe the fire was in roughly about the 1920s, believe it or not. So we're not talking about recent, we're actually talking about the 1920s. So a little bit later than 1929, roughly there. It may have actually been in the same year, but it was roughly the 1929s into the 1930s. There was a fire, a large fire. Now, fire engines from both Stourbridge and Halesowen came to this fire and had to put it out, and it took well over an hour to completely put the fire out. It caused a lot of damage. I wouldn't say it caused substantial damage, but it did cause a lot of damage. Shortly after then, this location became flooded. Okay, so it doesn't say how it became flooded. It just said that this location became flooded, and it was in such a bad state that it was impossible to reuse the location. So that's roughly how it kind of fell into deterioration and abandoned and dereliction and that kind of thing. So does that kind of give you a bit of a storyline? So 1829, two gentlemen from London, along with 8 other men from a big steelworks in London, came up with the idea, 2 gentlemen, so we've got Richard Spooner and we've got Henry Marshall, came here, built the location, mined for coal and flint. 1929ish roughly, there was a fire, and then just after that is when it became flooded and they couldn't use it anymore. So that's kind of roughly about as much information as I can remember. Now there is a little bit more information, okay, and if I can remember it as we go along, I will mention it to you. However, don't worry too much, because as always, I've taken quite a few. I wouldn't say I've taken lots, because there isn't actually much to photograph, but I have taken some photographs of both inside and outside this part of the building, as well as the other 2, which we're not going to go into. Okay, now the reason why we're not going to go into them is because, one, it's getting slightly dark, and it's dark in both those buildings, and to be honest, there's not actually a lot to see. I will point to them, but there's not actually anything in them, so they're completely empty. We'll have a little look outside and I'll point them out to you. And that's about it. So I've taken the photographs, so I'll put them on Facebook later, either today or tomorrow, and I will put them on my website page at some point in the next couple of days, including all the information, not just the information that I've given you, but also the other information to go along with it. There is quite a lot, but it goes into more things like financials, so like money figures and that kind of thing. It doesn't really go into many factual things, i.e. the kind of people who worked here, their ages, how many, that kind of thing. So it doesn't really go into that. So a lot of the information I haven't given you is because it's kind of more the financial side, the cost of what it would cost to keep this place going, the estimated value of this place now. Now it does say roughly today, if this location was still up and running and in fully working order, it would be worth £8 million, roughly. Now it's not a big site, it's actually really small, but it's estimated that it would roughly be about worth £8 million today, present. Okay, so give you a bit of an idea. So it's actually quite surprising to think that this place would be worth that much money if it was to work in. So what we had the mining. Now the mining predominantly took place in and around this particular part of the building. It was then taken by horse and cart, and there were two ways that it was then transferred. So it was taken by horse and cart from here. One was down to the railway line, as I mentioned earlier, the Stour River, which is now obviously the river, which would have been the railway line. So the clay, or the flint and the coal in particular, would have been taken by horse and carriage or horse and cart down to the railway line, tipped into the wagons, and then taken and distributed throughout the United Kingdom. And secondly, obviously when trucks and lorries were built and made, they were loaded into those and driven to various parts. Now this site is surrounded by not only Birmingham, but also some other fairly large places. In fact, Stour Bridge isn't that far away, probably a couple of miles away. We've got Dudley and Tipton, not that far away as well. We've got all the other little places in between. So it's quite central in a way. Obviously everything's built up around it, but it's quite central. So it would have been used, lorries and trucks would have taken the minerals and distributed them throughout the United Kingdom. Okay, so that really is roughly all the information that I can give you, that I can remember, and I've given you the most, I say interesting, the most relevant, if you like, research information about this location. And like I said, all the rest of it is kind of just facts and figures and dates and that kind of thing, and obviously I can't remember everything, but I've done my best to remember the most important bits, if you like. So this broadcast may not be very long, and it may not actually be very interesting. As always, I always say that I try and make them as interesting as possible, but this might actually be very short and not that interesting. But let's go have a look, because there's really nothing else that I can give you. Now I have got my little LED flashlight torch thing on, so hopefully we're going to be able to see something. It is quite dark upstairs, but hopefully we'll get to see something. So what I'm going to do, and I can see lots of people watching, thank you so much. Hello to all the people watching down the left hand side of the screen as I'm looking now, so very warm welcome to you. Thank you all for watching and for tuning in, and hopefully you will find this interesting if you haven't already. So without further ado, let's go take a look, and you can see just what's left of this fascinating, what's left of a coal colliery or mining location. So what I'm going to do first of all is pick you up as always, and I'm just going to close the legs. Like I said, we've got the torch on, and I'm going to lift the legs up a bit, so you'll have to excuse me while I just close the legs. So just bear with me. And the nice thing about having a camcorder is that we won't have to do this. So bear with me 1 second. Right, okay, so let's go have a look. So what I'm going to do is just skim the comments to one side. So if you want to comment, please continue to do so. I've just wiped them to one side, so maybe you can see a bit more I can. Okay, so we're now standing more or less in the main part of the building. Now it looks like from the outside, and we'll have a look in a minute. In fact, what I might do is just, I'll take you outside in a minute, you can have a look. It looks basically like a long barn in a way, with a chimney on one end. So it's quite a long building, but it's divided into rooms. So each room is probably the size of your, I would say probably 2 rooms in a standard house put together. So if you can imagine a kitchen or a living room and a front room joined together, that's roughly the size of each of these rooms. I would say there's probably 4 or 5 in a line, in a straight line. So this part of the building is a straight building. Okay, so if I give you a look about, now my flashlight, believe it or not, is on the brightest, so I'm hoping you're going to be able to see some. Okay, you can see there's lots of debris. Now, it doesn't say what each part of the building was used for. Okay, so I'm going to assume that this would have been, it could have been used for so many different things because of its size. It could have been used for storage. It could have been used where the coal would have been. They wouldn't have taken it upstairs because obviously the weight of the coal would have been too great, and already parts of the upstairs ceiling are falling through. So there's a possibility that maybe this would have been where, I wouldn't say a barn, but I would say where things would have been stored. So coal, bags of Flint may have been stored. Now don't quote me, I may be absolutely wrong, but it's one of those locations where there's not really a lot to go on. So I'm kind of, if you like, guessing. I'm not so much fabricating, but I'm just guessing. So I could be wrong, so don't quote me, but I would imagine possibly this being the one with the largest doors. And if you see what I mean, there, it's got the largest doors. So they're the original doors. I'm assuming this would have been the barn area or storage because of its size. So I'm saying coal or flint may have been stored in here along with other things. Now there were stables here. Now there's no indication, I don't think. I was looking for like ideas of like stables. I don't think this would have been a stable, but I think the stables would have been further down. Now we're not going to be able to go and look, and there's nothing in each of the rooms anyway, apart from they're just all separated by a brick wall and they're empty. So there's nothing in them, and they're square and they're about the same size as this. But the stables were a little bit further down. It doesn't say how many horses were kept, but the stables were a bit further down. So I'm saying this would have been storage. Anyway, I'm going to stop yapping and give you a look at it so you can see how much there's lots of debris. So this is recent debris, believe it or not. So you can see there's lots of stools. There's basically just stuff just being thrown in here, so you can kind of see. So there's literally just stuff lying about, like bits of wood. But you can get an idea. If I look that way, you're actually now looking towards either end. Now we're going to got this. You see that flight of steps there? We'll got those in a minute, but can you see there's the other end there, look? So that's the size of just this room. So I'd say this would have been a storage. And then after that there's another couple of square rooms, about the same size, maybe a bit smaller. So I'm thinking they would have been the stables and where machinery may have been stored or something. Okay, but I'll give you a good look about, because I'm conscious that I've not given you a lot of research, and I just want to make this as interesting as possible. So we've still got all the original wooden beams and all the original wooden structure for the ceiling. But you can see all the debris, you can see all the bits and bobs laying about. So I'm going to come over this way so you can get more of an idea. I've just been very careful where I stand. Okay, so you've got lots of stuff on the floor. So you can see the original beams, the original brickwork. But you can't really see much, but you can see there's like just stuff all over the place. You can't see towards the back there, but there's massive beams of wood, and that's looking under the stairway. There's just wooden panels or something over there, and there's this like yellow, almost like maintenance or water maintenance tubing on the floor. But there's just loads of stuff. There's just been stuff thrown in there, benches and stuff like that. You could see anyway. Now, to me, I always try and pick up a kind of atmosphere. To me, this feels like a coaling place, and the reason why I say that is because, not because there's a smell, but because it's so cold. I mean, it's cold anyway, but it is absolutely icy, icy, icy cold. To me, that's like typical coal and mining and, you know, underground and that kind of thing. But yeah, there's just, I don't know. It's just like standing in a big shed, really. There's nothing I can show you to kind of make it more interesting, other than what you can just see, which is just stuff all over the floor. That's it. It's just one big, large storage room, I guess. Anyway, let's go upstairs. So just bear with me. Okay, so we're going to have to go. Now these are the original stairs, believe it or not. Okay, these aren't. These are the original stairs from, and I have been up there, so they're safe. The original stairs from 1829, which is fascinating, really, to think that they're dated well over 100 years old. It's fascinating. But let's go have a look. I'm just going to have to move this pipe thing out of the way because it's kind of sticking out. And I am going to go upstairs very, very carefully. That's it. It's a bit more. That's it. So you can see the. I don't know if I'm. Say a bit lighter now. So you can see the original paintwork was all green, and it's absolutely riddled with woodworm. That's not really a good thing to say when I'm standing on wooden steps, really, is it? Just realised what I've said. Okay, I have walked up these stairs very carefully. They're safe. But due to age, I mean the banister, you can probably see. Can you see what I mean? That woodworm. Maybe I should get off these stairs. I'm just realising what I'm saying. But yes, woodworm. Okay, so we've got to be careful. There's a gap in the floor. Don't know if you can see that. There. So you've just got to be a bit careful that I step over it. Okay, so we're now upstairs into this huge room. Now I'm going to stand in the middle because it's lighter. I'm going to stand nearest to the window so that you can see, because I want to see if you can see something. So we've just come up the stairs up into this another kind of huge storage space. But like I said, I can't imagine they would have stored coal or anything up here. I don't actually know what would have been up here. What baffles me, and I don't know if you can see it, I'll kind of take you in a minute. There's a big wooden structure. Can you see this big wooden thing in the middle? I don't actually know what that would have been used for. I really have no idea. But it's original, and it's obviously eaten away, and some of it's drifted apart and it's kind of demolished, but it's a big wooden structure. But it's a fascinating building in the sense that obviously you've got the original window panes are still here. So we came up the stairs, up onto the landing, up into this big kind of, almost like a secondary storage place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you down the side, and hopefully you'll be able to see what I mean. It's got this big wooden, and you can't see it, even with the light on. It's like a big wooden structure, and it literally runs all the way down. So it's like in the middle of the room, but I don't know what it was used for. I don't know if it was like, I don't know, just can't quite make it out what it was used for. I'll tell you what it kind of looks like, and what it could well be. If I just pan the camera back, I don't think you're going to be able to see it because it's so dark in here, and even with this little light, you're not really going to see. So on the back of the wall, you can't see it. Believe it or not, on the back, you can't see. On the back wall, so I'm literally standing just in front of it now. On the back wall is a wooden unit, and it's made up of cubes, almost like pigeonholes for mail. So I'm wondering if this was kind of like the sorting area for something. Not necessarily mail, but I'm wondering if this was like a sorting area of some kind. So that wooden, and it's fairly intact, believe it or not. I wish I could show you. I have got my torch, but it means I've got to go and get my bag, and I don't want you to have to kind of just look at nothing. But it's kind of like a wooden, it covers the whole back of the wall, and it's made up of like square boxes. But yeah, they look like storages or something, so I'm just wondering if that would have been used for either, it could have been anything, it could have been paperwork, it could have been stationery, maybe I'm in the office, maybe I'm standing in the office area, so maybe this big wooden thing in the middle here, that you can't really see, was like a kind of work desk area, and kind of like somewhere where they would have worked and maybe done all the paperwork and all the filing and stuff up here. I really don't know. I'm literally speculating, but it's just it is, like I said, it's fascinating. Now up here's the only place that's got a smell, and when I say smell, it just smells of old timber, like old wood. I'm just going to walk back towards the window so you can see me a bit better. So it smells of like old wood and old timber, that really quite nice old timbery smell. I just wish I could show you more, but you can just see it there, like a great big, so it's almost like a desk thing there, and then like it's just in the middle, like a little island, like a long rectangle shape. So yeah, maybe that was used for, like I said, all the ordering and paperwork and all that kind of thing would have been done here, so this would have been like an office area. And that at the back there would have been where they would have sorted it all into areas or something, maybe. I really don't know. It's so hard to say. So that's kind of all that's up here, is this wooden display thing and those boxes, those wooden pigeonhole boxes on the back wall. There's nothing else up here. It's all the original beams, all the original woodwork, all the roof's intact. It's all still here, so it's quite sort of fascinating in a way to think that for the first time, there's not many locations I've done where the roof's been intact, but it's all intact. But it's all the original 1829 roof and beams and stuff, which is quite fascinating. So that's kind of all I've got to show you up here, I'm afraid. Like I said, I did tell you this probably wouldn't be a very good broadcast. Now, I'm going to take you in here. And I just, like I said, I just don't think you're going to be seeing anything. I just wonder if I can get my torch for you. Okay, so what we've done, we've actually walked into another room just next to where we were. And it's literally just a big, massive, empty room. And what I'm going to do, I've got my torch now, so I'm going to just turn you around and hopefully give you a look. Can you see? So we've got original, almost like a chimney that runs up. See, it runs up there? So you can see the original ceiling or roof. So that's all the original beams. You can see it. So that's the doorway that we just come through there. That's my bag. And then we've got like this wooden desk thing, like this great big wooden kind of, again, it's like a wooden desk. I'm wondering if that may have been part of what was next door. But it's like a big wooden desk thing with like these little square holes, like square boxes. But it's just an empty room. You can see, look, if I shine it up to the roof, you've got the original beam. And then, yeah, so you've got this big wooden thing here. But it's just a big empty room. Dark, very cold, empty room. So again, this could have been used for anything. Absolutely anything, but there's the chimney stack, or the chimney, what's left of it, there, going up. And that's literally all that's in here. There's nothing else. So again, like I said, I'm so sorry, this is so vague, but I don't know what it could have been used for, anything. So what we're going to do is we'll go back next door, because I'm just conscious it's getting dark. And I'm just going to shine the torch on that wooden thing, so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Can you see that? That big wooden thing, look. Let's go around the side of it, so you can see what I mean. See what I mean about this big wooden structure? That there, look. It's a big wooden structure. And if you look towards the back wall, do you see what I mean about those wooden boxes? They're almost like pigeon boxes. See what I mean? All across the back wall. So I don't know. So it could have been what I said or not. But you've got the original ceiling. If I just pan it this way, look, you can see there's the original beams. And there's that wooden structure. And if I come all the way towards the back and show you what I mean, can you see that? It's just there, look. That big wooden structure thing in the middle. Yeah, kind of see it. So I don't know. Anyway, so that's kind of what's up here, really. So what I'm going to do is just pan. That's better. Let me just turn the torch off. And you can get an idea of how, if I just show you a minute. See how cold it is? Freezing, absolutely freezing. Anyway, so that's upstairs. So it was very vague, I'm afraid. Very vague, and I am so sorry, but that's kind of it. So you had upstairs this big room that could have been a sorting office, whatever, and then that empty room next door. And then you've got the flight of steps, which we're going to go back down now. I'm going to take you outside. And then that's kind of it, I'm afraid. I'm so sorry. It's not been a very good one today, I'm afraid, but I did say that we would visit every single derelict and abandoned location, regardless of how insignificant or uninteresting they were going to be. Okay, so we've come downstairs. We're now downstairs. What we'll do is just turn off this little flashlight. Should have it on the back. There we go. So, shall I just show you down here? Maybe not a disco. Shall I? There. Ah, there you go. Look. So there's the stairs. So it's going up. So that's the room. See what I mean about debris? It's just a great big room with lots of stuff and debris. And that's really all there is. So let's come outside and let's show you. That's it. Oh, it's nice to have a bit of daylight. Okay, so we're going to stand here simply because this is, and you can just see by the kind of lightness, it's starting to get dark. So if I just pan the camera up, you can now see what. So that's where we were in there. So you can get an idea of what it looks like from outside. So there's the chimney, and you can see it goes all the way down there, look. See that? All the way down there? So that's where I think the stables were, down that way. A couple down that way. But this is kind of like the main building. And as I mentioned before, we're not going to go and have a look, because there's nothing. I wish I could take over there, but it's just getting too dark. And to get into the one where I believe the furnace was, we're going to have to, there's a ledge that we need to climb through. And it means it's just quite, when you get on the other side, there's like a metal grill, and you stand on that, and then there's this great big circular, massive circular brick hole that leads into the furnace, believe it or not. But there's nothing in there, it's just a massive thing. So I'll point it out to you so you can see. Okay, so trust me, behind that block of trees, just there, look there. So that's where the furnace was. That's where the furnace was. So it's just a very small rectangular tower with a tiny piece sticking out the side. And I've taken a photograph of it so you better see what it looks like, and I've taken pictures inside as well. That would have been the furnace. So as I mentioned, you go through the door, and there's a huge, massive, there's like a grill thing on the floor that you stand on, and there's a huge, I can't describe how big it is, a massive circular hole in the wall, proper like a brick circle. And as you stand and look in, it's just a massive empty space, and then you've got like this furnace, what's left of the furnace area, where things would have been burnt, and then it would have escaped through the little kind of chute at the top, the chimney bit, and that's all that's in there. There's nothing in there apart from just nothing, basically. But that's the furnace. And believe it or not, in there, that building there, look, that big building, I don't know what that would have been used for, but it is a massive barn, huge barn. There's what's left of 3 brick, not foundations, but 3 brick, what's the word I'm looking for? Like what's left of 3 separate brick, I suppose it would be foundations of something. I don't know what they would have been for. They could have been for anything. They could have been, who knows? That could have been, I'm just trying to think. Could that, see, that wouldn't have been no, I don't think that would have been a stable. I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that would have been the stable. As you go in there, the side nearest, I don't know if you can see just there, just above that, and I've taken a big picture of it, is the largest, biggest pulley wheel I've ever seen. Massive, probably 24 spoked, or maybe 18 spoked circular pulley wheel with a smaller one, and it's still there on the little track. That obviously would have been used to lift the coal and things off maybe the horse and carriage or the horse and cart. So maybe that would have been the storage. Maybe that being such a big barn would have been where they would have stored the coal and the flint in there. But it's just a great big square empty barn. There's nothing else apart from those 3. There's like two brick, what's left of 2 brick foundations at the back. And when I say foundations, I mean just brick, almost like table height, and they're the same height, and they're just like square, but they've fallen down, so I don't know what they would have been used for. And then there's a large one just by the pulley, so that may have been perhaps where they would have lifted the coal and things off and then rested it on that stone platform. That could have been like a platform where they would have stood and operated the pulley from, possibly, and then done it that way. But that, believe it or not, is all that's in there. There is nothing else. And unfortunately, that is all that I can give you. There is absolutely nothing else I can show you, and there is nothing else that I can tell you. So that's kind of the end of the broadcast. That's the end of episode 17 of Influences of the Times. So I do apologise if this broadcast wasn't very interesting, if it wasn't very factual, or if it was kind of boring in a way, because obviously a lot of it was dark and there wasn't really a lot to see, and there just isn't. You know, this is probably one of the most maybe one of the most emptiest locations that I've broadcast from. There was just nothing apart from the rubble that's in the main kind of barn, if you like. The reason why I'm walking this way is because there is another 2 barns, but we're not going to go and have a look at them, simply because once again they are totally empty. And we could go and have a look, but you'd just be looking at an empty barn. But I will show you them so you can see. If you look straight ahead there, so you've got a great big barn with a big open, it's just completely open, there is nothing in it, it's just empty. And what's left there, see it? Big barn, then you've got like a little kind of shed bit there. Again, they're just totally empty, there is nothing in them. So they would have been used for storing their carts, storing machinery, who knows, anything. But I'm afraid that's all I can show you. That's all I can show you, and that's all I can tell you. So thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Influences of the Times in episode 17 in this fascinating series. And I do promise you that not every broadcast is going to be as boring maybe as today's. There are going to be some of the, as I've mentioned on many occasions, we're going to be travelling. I'm going to be taking you all over the United Kingdom, everywhere. And we will be going into every single possible derelict and abandoned place that we can find. And hopefully some broadcasts that I'll be doing will make up for the ones that aren't quite so interesting. Now, I do appreciate that obviously the one that we did in Cambridgeshire from the mansion was probably the most fascinating I've ever been to, simply because there was so much stuff in the back. There was the car, there was the fuel pods left from a World War II plane that I believe to be World War II-ish. The mansion itself was fascinating. The little stove thing was still in the kitchen. There were some bicycles in a room to one side that we didn't get to broadcast from, but I did take a photograph of it. There was 3 bicycles lined up. It was just fascinating. So hopefully, and I promise you that there will be some locations that I will be taking you to in the future. Now, just because it's getting cold and wintry, I will still be going out. I will still be travelling and trekking and taking you to every possible derelict and abandoned location that I can find, and I will be continuing to go in search of Britain's most fascinating hidden secrets and uncovering them and taking you in there so that you can see firsthand, and so that I can take photographs for you and all the information to go along with each and every possible location that we can go to on Facebook and on my website. So hopefully we will be going to, and we will be going to some fascinating locations, I can assure you, and they will make up for ones like today that aren't perhaps quite so good. So stay tuned, keep watching, watch this space. As I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the broadcast, we will be starting to use our brand new camcorder and live streaming and broadcasting on Facebook and YouTube very, very soon, the next week or 2 weeks, and I can't wait to start doing that because it will be a lot better. It will certainly look more professional, it will feel more professional, and hopefully it will look more professional for you guys, because you'll get a far better, if you like, you'll just get a better kind of picture quality and everything else. It'll just be better for you, really. Anyway, so thank you for watching and for tuning in. And so from me, Influences of the Times, and from one of the last remaining coal and flint mining collieries left, as far back as 1829. From me and from that, a very, very good night to you. Enjoy your bonfire night if you're going out to see fireworks tonight. I certainly am. I'm going out later to watch some fireworks and I can't wait. So enjoy your bonfire night. If you're staying in, stay warm, safe. Enjoy the fireworks. Have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Keep watching, because I'll be broadcasting to you very, very, very soon, I promise. Hopefully within the next couple of days or week or so, either from the pub or from another location. So stay tuned. And like I mentioned, we have got some fantastic, amazing locations coming up over the next days, weeks, months, next year, and even possibly the year after. So stay tuned. And just before I go, hopefully I will be having my first postcards printed, not only from Influences of the Times, but some of the photography I've taken of the beautiful autumn colours, and I'll be posting them on Facebook when I get them. I hopefully be getting them soon. I'll be putting them on Facebook and on Gumtree. They will be for sale, not very expensive. If you wouldn't mind, if it's okay with you guys, if you could just share, if I do put anything like that on Facebook, if you wouldn't mind, if you could share those things on your Facebook and just see if anybody's interested. But yeah, hopefully I'll be having some postcards and maybe a calendar or some other bits and bobs coming out very soon. So stay tuned, keep watching. Once again, thank you so much. I'm going to go and get my bag and I'm going to head home and get ready to go and see these brilliant fireworks that I can't wait to go and see. So until the next time, God bless, take care. Thank you for watching Influencer Times as we continue to go in search of Britain's most abandoned derelict places and uncovering the fascinating stories behind them and taking you in there so that you can see with your own eyes what it's like in all these places, because believe it or not, Britain has got some fascinating and amazing hidden secrets that you just don't know about, and we're going to find them and I will be taking you in there. So till then, take care, enjoy your evening, bye for now.